Inanna, queen of heaven and goddess of love and war, decided to visit the underworld, the domain of her older sister, a place from which the old law was absolute. Whoever enters cannot leave. Whoever leaves must send someone else in their place. She dressed in 7 pieces of divine regalia, crown to sandals, believing her power would protect her. At each of the underworld's 7 gates, a piece was stripped away. By the time she reached her sister's throne room, she was naked, powerless, and utterly without protection. Her sister looked at her once and killed her. This is one of the oldest myths ever recorded, inscribed on Sumerian clay tablets nearly 4,000 years ago. It's a story about what happens when you walk into someone else's domain, assuming your power travels with you, and a story about exactly how far a goddess will go to come back from the one place nothing is supposed to leave. Inanna was the most powerful goddess in the Sumerian pantheon, queen of heaven, goddess of love, fertility, and war, associated with the planet Venus, worshipped across Mesopotamia with more temples and hymns dedicated to her than almost any other deity. She had already claimed dominion over the sky and the earth. The only realm left unclaimed was the one below both, the underworld, the great below, ruled entirely by her older sister, Ereshkigal, queen of the dead. The 2 sisters were not close. Traditions differ on exactly why Inanna decided to travel there. Some say to attend the funeral rites of Ereshkigal's husband. Others say simply that Inanna wanted to extend her authority into her sister's domain as well. Whatever her reason, the law of the underworld was absolute and well known, even to gods. Whoever enters cannot leave again, unless they provide someone else to take their place. Inanna was not reckless about this. Before she left, she instructed her loyal servant Ninshubur with exact instructions. If I do not return within 3 days, go to the gods, go to my father Enlil, go to the moon god Nanna, and if neither of them help you, go to Enki, god of wisdom and fresh water, and beg him to save me. Set up mourning rites for me. Beat the drum, tear your clothes, as though I have already died. Then she dressed for the descent. She put on all 7 articles of her divine power, the crown of the steppe, a strand of lapis lazuli beads at her throat, twin beads on her breast, a golden ring, a breastplate called Come Man, Come, a gold bracelet, and the royal robe of her office, believing, as any god would, that her regalia was her power, and that she would carry every bit of it with her wherever she went. She had never entered a domain where that assumption would be tested. At the outer gate of the underworld, Inanna knocked and demanded entry. The gatekeeper Nedi went to Ereshkigal for instruction, and the queen of the dead, furious, suspicious of her sister's true motives, or perhaps simply exercising the one law that applied equally to every visitor, mortal or divine, gave her answer. Let her in, through all 7 gates. But at each one, strip her of one piece of her power, exactly as the ancient rites of the underworld demand of anyone who enters. Nedi obeyed. At the first gate, he removed the crown of the steppe from her head. Inanna protested. "What is this?" And Nedi gave the same answer at every gate that followed. "Quiet, Inanna. The ways of the underworld are perfect. They may not be questioned." At the second gate, the lapis lazuli beads were taken from her throat. At the third, the twin beads from her breast. At the fourth, the breastplate called Come Man, Come. At the fifth, the golden ring from her hand. At the 6th, the measuring rod and line, tools of her authority and judgment, were taken. At the 7th and final gate, the royal robe itself, the last thing covering her, was stripped away. By the time Inanna passed through the 7th gate, she had nothing left. No crown, no jewelry, no robe, no tools of judgment, no symbol of rank at all. Every single thing that had made her recognizable as the Queen of Heaven had been peeled away, gate by gate, until what walked into Ereshkigal's throne room was simply a woman, naked, bowed low, with nothing left to protect her. She had believed her power was something she carried. The underworld had just demonstrated methodically and without malice that it was something she was only ever loaned. Inanna entered the throne room of the great below naked and bowed, and Ereshkigal did not rise to greet her, did not treat her as a sister at all. Seated around Ereshkigal were the 7 Anunnaki, the judges of the underworld, whose verdict was law in that domain, the way Ereshkigal's law was law at the gates. The judges fixed their eyes on Inanna, in the old texts, the eye of death, and it was enough. Inanna's body seized, and she died on the spot, transformed instantly into a corpse. Ereshkigal, without ceremony, ordered the body hung on a hook driven into the wall, left to rot in full view of the throne room, proof that the law of the underworld applied to absolutely everyone who entered it, divine or not. 3 days passed, then 3 more. Up in the world above, Nin Shubur, exactly as instructed, began the mourning rites. She beat the drum, tore her own clothes, and went first to Enlil, the king of the gods, begging him to save Inanna. Enlil refused outright. Inanna had gone there by her own choice, into a domain with an absolute law, and he saw no reason to interfere. Ninshubur went next to Nanna, the moon god, Inanna's own father. He refused as well for the same reason. With 2 refusals behind her and Inanna's corpse still hanging on a hook in a realm from which nothing returns, Ninshubur made her way to the one god who had never yet said no to a genuinely desperate plea, Enki, god of wisdom and the deep fresh waters, who listened to every word of what had happened and did not hesitate. Enki was troubled by what Ninshubur told him, but not for a moment did he consider it hopeless. From the dirt beneath his own fingernails, he shaped 2 small creatures, neither male nor female, small enough to slip through the cracks of doorways, unnoticed by the guards of the underworld. He named them the Kurgara and the Galatur, and gave them careful instructions along with 2 precious substances, the food of life and the water of life. He told them exactly what to do. They would find Ereshkigal not seated in triumph, but writhing in genuine grief and pain, mourning for her dead husband, groaning like a woman in the pangs of childbirth. The 2 creatures were to moan in sympathy with her, exactly matching her cries, no judgment, no agenda, just pure grief alongside hers. It worked exactly as Enki predicted. Moved that 2 strange small creatures would mourn beside her with no ulterior motive, Ereshkigal, in her gratitude, offered them any gift they wished. They asked only for the corpse hanging on the wall. She granted it without a second thought. The Kurgara and Galatur sprinkled the food of life and the water of life over Inanna's rotting corpse, and she rose, restored, breathing again. But the ancient law of the underworld had one final unbreakable clause. No one leaves without providing a substitute to remain in their place. Inanna was released, but a company of merciless demons called the Gala were sent with her under strict orders to drag someone, anyone, back down to take her spot. Inanna walked back toward the world above, surrounded by the Gala, and at every stop, she found someone she loved in states of genuine mourning. Her servant Ninshubur, still in torn clothes. Her sons, prostrate with real grief. Every time the demons reached for one of them, Inanna stopped them. These people had genuinely mourned her. Then she reached her own city and found her husband Dumuzi seated on her own throne, dressed in his finest clothes, showing no sign of grief whatsoever. He hadn't torn his clothing. He hadn't mourned. If anything, he looked entirely comfortable ruling in her absence. Inanna's fury was immediate. She fixed the same eye of death on Dumuzi that the Anunnaki had fixed on her, and the Gala seized him. Dumuzi ran, tried to hide, even asked the sun god Utu to transform him into a snake to escape, buying himself brief windows of freedom, but the demons hunted him down every time. His sister, Inanna, loved him enough to search for him herself, and eventually offered a solution nobody else had proposed. Rather than Dumuzi enduring the underworld's full sentence alone, she would take his place for half of each year, so the two of them would trade, 6 months below, 6 months above, forever. The judges accepted, and so the yearly cycle was set. Half a year of Dumuzi in the great below, the world's vegetation withering with him, and half a year of his return, the land blooming again. The same rhythm of death and renewal that would echo centuries later in every myth of a god who dies and returns with the seasons. Subscribe if you want more. See you in the next one.